FA011, Fire Alarm Systems Life Safety Equipment. The primary purpose of a fire alarm system or fire alarm systems is life safety, and this is accomplished through automatically or manually detecting hazardous conditions, notifying occupants of these conditions, performing emergency safety functions, and supervising other systems. Supervised systems include fire pumps, sprinklers, and special hazard systems. Fire alarm systems are capable of far more than just making noise. They detect fires or other hazardous conditions, such as carbon monoxide, and report the signal to the occupants to allow them to evacuate safely. Other functions that fire alarm systems may operate are emergency safety functions, and they may include elevator recall, smoke control, door unlocking, or smoke door closure. Just like the NEC is a list of standards and codes for electrical installations, NFPA 70, NFPA 72, National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code, is where we find our requirements for fire alarm systems, supervising station alarm systems, public emergency alarm reporting systems, fire warning equipment and household fire alarm systems, and emergency communication systems. Fire alarm systems have evolved to include part or all of the following: manual fire alarm initiation, manually operated by the occupants or responders and transmit signals to the FACU. These manual fire alarm boxes are typically placed on exits or at exits on each floor of the building, where required by other codes such as International Building Code. A manual fire alarm initiation device is a pull station or any other kind of switch or trigger that requires an occupant to interact with the device. Automatic detection. These automatically detect smoke, heat, flames, or other fire signatures and transmit signals to the FACU to allow the FACU to notify the occupants that there is a hazard. On the left-hand side here, this is a smoke detector. And on the right-hand side, this is an example of a heat detector. Automatic suppression system alarm detection. Water flow switches or suppression system control unit relay contacts send alarm signals to the FACU. Water flow switches, for example, let's say the sprinkler system is activated and water is spraying out one of the sprinkler heads or multiple sprinkler heads. Well, that will force water to flow through the main sprinkler system. That flow of water will pass through a flow switch, and that flow switch will monitor if there's a flow of water or not. And if there is a flow of water, it will alert the FACU that the sprinkler system has been engaged. This will tell the FACU to notify first responders. Automatic hazardous gas detection alarm notification. Carbon monoxide, ammonia, methane, or other hazardous gases are all dangerous to occupants inside of a building. These detectors send signals to the FACU saying, hey, there's presence of carbon monoxide or ammonia or these other hazardous gases. They send a supervisory signal to the FACU to allow the FACU to notify the occupants, hey, you need to evacuate. There's a gaseous issue in the building and you need to get out for your own safety. Incomplete combustion creates carbon monoxide. And carbon monoxide is an odorless, colorless, tasteless, toxic gas. Carbon monoxide detection is required where fossil fuel burning appliances are used. The requirement to have a fire alarm system in an occupancy is not found in NFPA 72 by itself. There are other building codes and standards that require different types of systems dependent upon occupant and use. The design of these systems must comply with NFPA 101, Life Safety Code, NFPA 5000, Construction and Safety Code, International Building Code, national, regional, state, and local building codes. Designer qualifications for these systems: licensed professional engineer or NICET level 4 fire alarm certified. Qualifications will vary greatly through the 38,000 jurisdictions in the U.S. Some jurisdictions require a PE stamp on plans for buildings over a certain size or cost, where others may permit NICET level 4 fire alarm technicians to design some systems. When it comes to fire alarm system design and installation, you've heard the term used, codes and standards, but both have similar yet somewhat different meanings or requirements. Codes determine the type of a system and coverage, where standards specify how the system is installed and how it must operate. NFPA 72 is called a code, but is really a standard with the exception of Chapter 29, Household. NFPA does not specify initiating device or notification appliance coverage for any occupancies except dwellings. NFPA 101, NFPA 5000, or local building codes must be consulted for system and coverage requirements. For codes, they define occupancies or use groups. Codes identify fire alarm system requirements based on occupancy or use group. Codes specify when or where, and codes refer installation requirements to NFPA 72, whereas standards specify how, and standards refer to product standards. Codes indicate the type of system required, where standards specify how systems are installed. So codes, like Life Safety 101 and International Building Code, require a type of system. They'll look to NFPA 72 for some codes, but most standards on how that system is to perform. NFPA 72 looks to product standards to specify how products operate and ensure they are safe. For example, they'll look to UL listing or underwriter laboratories to ensure that the products are listed that comprise the fire alarm system. NFPA 72 requires all products used to be listed. This implies that they meet some recognized product standard. Let's recap. Codes establish type of system required, extent of initiating device coverage, extent of notification appliance coverage, whereas standards establish system performance requirements, detector and appliance spacing. As was stated, NFPA 72 requires that all of its products be listed. Product listings are found in section 10.3.1 of NFPA 72, and this requires all products used in conformity with the code to be listed for the purpose of which they are used. This listing is indicated by a listing mark on appliances by Underwriters Laboratories, FM Global, And those symbols can be located here on the smoke detector or initiating device appliance. UL lists products, whereas FM approves products. These two terms essentially mean the same thing. When it comes to zoning, this is determined by NFPA 101, NFPA 5000, and or local building codes. This zoning is required to know what type of devices and what type of coverage per occupancy is required. Fire alarm zones are an area from which a signal can be received, an area to which a signal can be sent, an area in which a form of control can be executed. Each floor or building is generally a separate zone, and each building is zoned separately. Fire alarm system installation. Wiring of fire alarm systems is covered by NFPA 70, National Electrical Code, and articles that may apply more specifically to fire alarm are Article 760, Fire Alarm Systems, Article 770, Optical Fiber Cables, and Article 800, Communication Circuits. Fire alarm system installation and performance requirements are covered by NFPA 72, National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code. NFPA 72 National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code requires all equipment used in conformity with the code to be listed for the purpose of which it's used. See NFPA 72 10.3.1. For example, a smoke detector for system use must be listed to the requirements of UL 268, smoke detectors for fire alarm systems, but a relay used to control a smoke exhaust fan must be listed to UL 508, industrial control equipment. Other NFPA standards that apply: NFPA 10, standard for portable fire extinguishers; NFPA 11, standard for low, medium, and high expansion foam; NFPA 12, standard for carbon dioxide extinguishing systems; NFPA 12, a standard for Halon 1301 fire extinguishing systems; NFPA 13, standard for the installation of fire sprinkler systems; NFPA 14, standard for the installation of standpipe and hose systems; NFPA 15, standard for water spray fixed systems; NFPA 17, standard for dry chemical extinguishing systems; NFPA 17A, standard for wet chemical extinguishing systems; NFPA 25, standard for inspection, testing, and maintenance of water-based fire protection systems; NFPA 90A, standard for the installation of air conditioning and ventilation; NFPA 92A, standard for smoke control systems; NFPA 92B, standard for smoke management systems in malls, atria, and large spaces; NFPA 170, standard for fire safety and emergency symbols; and NFPA 731, standard for security systems. These standards may be applicable to projects depending on the types of systems and adopted building life safety codes. All of these standards may be found on NFPA link.